Before we begin, obviously, I think politically, I don't know where you sit, but I think most people probably think they know where I sit.
Um, I think the last time I told you when we were having a talk, I was in the middle.
Yeah. This is actually complicated because the left and the right have actually both shifted. After September 11th, 2001, as you might remember,
Yeah,
the right under George Bush Jr. went hard right, and the left, rather than leave the chasm, followed. So both
yeah.
actually moved to the right, which wasn't good. That's why we managed to get the Patriot Act, which you should never write a law in the heat of the moment. And that's exactly what they did. But anyway, so long story short, the unfortunate thing is that the Republican Party
That
is further right than it should be, and that actually gets reflected in the debates. And both parties are actually fairly authoritarian, which I don't like. One of the interesting things, at least when I watched this originally with my wife, was how little control the moderators had. And it actually reminded me of the Democratic debates back in, I think it was 2016, and then again in 2020, because it was bedlam, absolute bedlam. And that's what we see from the Republican side.
And North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
They actually gave him almost no time. In fact, there's a point toward the very end where they are asking energy policy questions and oil drilling, etc., and they don't ask him the questions. The Dakotas, there's a lot of oil drilling. It's pretty much the entirety of the economy there is from oil drilling. I don't I don't understand. And I had the same complaint when I watched the Democratic debates of 2016 and 2020. The Republican debates, I thought, in 2020 were a little better, other than they wouldn't leash or muzzle Trump. And that's his own issue. I don't like Trump. Anyone who's from New York will tell you he is and was a crook. And I can say that without him suing me now, because he has been found guilty of, well, fraud. So he's a crook. But
so why haven't he been? I'm still not understanding why he's not in jail.
oh my goodness. Honestly, if he were anyone else, he would have been hauled off to jail, just like all the other people from January 6th. He should be in a similar boat as to them. And you can sit there and say what you want. The preponderance of evidence shows he was trying to get the governor of Georgia to falsify votes, which is patently illegal. He was trying to get Arizona and others to do similar things, but we have recordings of him trying to do it in Georgia. And you can't dispute the recordings. I'm sorry. You can sit there and brush it off and say, oh, well, he's just saying that we need to recount, but that's not what he says. He says, find me 11,000 votes. It's not the same thing as a recount, and it doesn't take a genius to read between the lines. But yeah, if he were anyone else, look, actually, this is one of my biggest complaints. You look at the hypocrisy. So everyone's talking about Hunter Biden on the right. I listen to media from actually a lot of international media, but I also listen to stuff from the left and the right here in the United States. And the right has been so gung ho against Hunter Biden, trying to get him to go to jail for lying when you get a firearm. So you remember when you get a firearm, they do a background check, right?
Yeah,
On that background check, I don't know if you noticed, but they ask about drug use and drug abuse.
yeah.
So he technically lied on that because he said he wasn't using illegal drugs when in fact the man was addicted to cocaine, which is its own thing. That same form, when you go to purchase a firearm, asks if you are currently under indictment or anything of that nature, or if there's anything legal wise that would preclude you from owning a firearm. Because of the stuff in Georgia, he's not allowed to own or touch a firearm. But you see Trump sitting there handling a firearm in, I think it was South Carolina, and I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, so the far right for a long time has done the whole Second Amendment right thing. It's my right to bear arms. They pushed that hard. The NRA has pushed that hard. And they've also pushed hard that those who have been convicted, etc., should be able to own firearms and all of this other stuff. I find it not a surprise, but very sad that they're so busy playing politics that they go after Hunter Biden for something that they should go after Trump for, because Trump can't legally handle those firearms. And there he is on video and in photos handling a pistol. He's not allowed to be touching that pistol, and saying that he might buy one. Whether or not he bought one, who knows, because he claims that they didn't really buy one. First they said they bought one, then they said they were going to buy one, and then they said, well, I didn't really buy one. It doesn't matter. He's still not allowed to be touching and handling it. He's not actually supposed to be in the gun shop at all. And so a few years ago, I was at a gun store, and this Army vet came in with his daughter and a much older gentleman, and they were going to purchase a firearm, and she's purchasing it for him. Why? Because he's not allowed to purchase a firearm. Now, you probably remember, but it's actually illegal, and they openly ask you the question when you go to purchase a firearm. Are you allowed to own a firearm? And are you allowed, are you buying this for someone else, right? When I bought the hunting rifles for my kids, for example, you can't say these are for my kids. It's for me. I own the hunting rifle. And even though they're the ones who are going to use it primarily because of hunting, it's mine. I'm not purchasing it for them. But there's no other way that they could obviously have a firearm because of age, etc., which is, it makes no sense. The mental gymnastics you have to do for all of this. My point being, you're actually asked by the gun shop all of these questions, and when I was there, the lady said, "Oh yeah, I'm purchasing it for him," and the gun shop owner said, "Well, I'm not selling to you, and I can't sell to you now because you just said that." And he turns to the gentleman and he goes, "Are you allowed to purchase a firearm?" And the guy said, "No, I was dishonorably discharged," which means he can't purchase a firearm. And the gun shop owner says, "You realize how much trouble you two just put me in because they were handling the firearm alone just because they were doing that."
Okay, so I have one question.
Yeah.
So the guy was in the military,
Yes.
and
had
if
been.
you're dishonorably discharged, you can't own a firearm,
Uh,
or is it just in situations?
The answer to that is yes.
Okay, because I was about to say I didn't know, like that would suck that
Yeah.
you're in the military, something happened, and what if it wasn't really go? Because I hear a lot of stories about people, and I don't know, maybe I don't know as much, but going or not really doing a lot of stuff, but what like they do something and then they get discharged, and I'm like, so what if it was something you didn't do something great, or you didn't follow some rule or something, like not that you kill somebody, but then they discharge you and now you can't own a firearm?
Yeah, so you'll get uh, there's something called an NJP, or they'll, at least it's typically referred to as a ninja punch. Yeah. NJP,
The-
ninja punch.
these things are funny.
Yes. So that is what you'll get if, for example, you're late to drill or something of that nature. If you missed the bus or transportation, you were late to go do PTs or what have you, you get ninja punched. If you get so many NJPs, you can be discharged, or it will prevent you from getting promoted. It will prevent you from getting re-upped. So when your contract expires, because they're contracts, and it's, let's say you've done 4 years, your contract was 4 years. Sometimes it's 6, or they have different lengths. But let's say you were doing 4 years and you want to do another 4 years because 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, so on and so forth. Those can prevent you from continuing to pursue your military career, both in promotion and being allowed to stay in. But it's not normal for someone to do something that rises to the point where you get thrown into the brig, and or heaven help you, you're like, what was it, his name, Tim King or whatever, that idiot who went over to North Korea and the North Koreans kicked him back.
That shit. I don't know why he did that. Like, you talk about he was trying to see or explore or see something. Like, why the fuck would you go do that?
Okay, he claimed when he got there, he was saying, oh, well, racism, racism, racism. But you want to know what really happened? He got in trouble because he got into fights with the locals. He's over there in South Korea, right? When you go overseas, one of the things that you get told a million billion times, you and your dependents, is you are an ambassador of the United States. Everything you do can and will be held against you by the locals. They won't like you. You'll get worse treatment. When we were in Asia, for example, it was also heavily emphasized that when you go to prison there, you won't be well treated and you won't be well fed, because in our case, we were in Okinawa and other parts of Asia, but much shorter people, they don't eat much, and you get their serving of food in prison, which is next to nothing. So a lot of Americans will go into a jail at Okinawa and come back minus 30 pounds, which is a hell of a lot of weight, or more, depending on how long they were in, just because they're so underfed.
Wow.
Yeah. So he got in fights with all of these locals over there at these bars, and he was going to get kicked out of the army. They were actually going to send him back to the United States. He was going to do some jail time and then be kicked out. So this racism stuff is bogus. Absolute bullshit. Yes, he probably faced racism from the Koreans because, I mean, if you go to Asia, I don't need to say anymore. But that still doesn't justify getting into fights with the locals. And the truth is, they would have acted that way, assuming that they did, toward him, no matter the color of his skin, because he was an American.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that so he fled over to North Korea, honestly, to escape his punishment and discharge.
Okay, back to the last part, just so. So the guy didn't have the courtesy, or didn't tell his daughter that if she just if in case she didn't say that, if just say she didn't go and say, hey, I'm buying it for this, buy it for him, and she bought the gun, gave it to him, and he done something with it. He didn't have the courtesy to tell her that she could go to jail for a long
Right.
time.
Yes, that's true. Because the firearms registered in her name.
Yep, because remember I told you that happened to so and so, that this idiot decided to buy guns for felons, and they used the gun, and he was basically considered, and he was buying multiple guns. I mean, rifles and stuff, and they was almost considering him a killer.
Yeah.
And he was going to get 32 years. And luckily he escaped, because they watched him, noticed that he really didn't know. He also had a disability in a way, but he wasn't that damn disabled.
Right.
But he got way lucky, not only doing at least a year because of that. And he probably told some other stuff as well, but he basically let him know that it wasn't him. But they had him all on camera anyway. But it was just like, you're an idiot. You didn't think like you said, they asked you these questions. You didn't think that buying these guns for felons,
Right,
in your name, and selling them getting into these people and other people probably that you wasn't going to be looked at as an arms dealer, and you're giving it to people with felonies, and that if they used the weapon, that you were going to be reliable for anything that happened with each weapon. And oh, heaven helped it if somebody got killed.
Yes. Yes.
That's a body. That's somebody's body that's on you now.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Yeah, this is one of the big things. Look, I own firearms, but I am a major proponent of proper background checks. I'm a major proponent of properly securing your firearms and firearm safety. One of, you have all these people and they run around and they say, well, the Democrats are trying to take our guns. They couldn't try to take our guns if you stopped getting your firearms stolen from your pickup truck because you have it in the glove compartment completely unlocked. And it gets stolen and now it gets sent over to Mexico, where it helps fuel the gang violence going on over there. They couldn't take away our guns if you properly secured your firearms so your kids wouldn't take it to school and go shoot someone or show it off to their friends or what have you. If you properly secure your firearms, and that can mean secure them on you, but it can also mean when it's not on you, properly securing it, we wouldn't have this problem. It was instilled in me that gun safety is absolutely positively important. And I'll tell you, when, for example, I asked my grandfather, okay, a World War II vet, well, did you all have your safeties on when you were marching around and doing all of this other stuff? And he sat there and he said, of course you had your safety on. Who wouldn't have their safety on? And that is, even to this day, you have your safety on in a war zone. That's what you typically do. You're not running around with the safety off because accidental discharges happen. You go to move the firearm, it goes off. Well, that's what the safety is there for.
It's funny you say that, and everything. Ever since you were training me to with the weapon, um, you know, I felt even before then the safety is important. But I had people who would tell me, no, what if this happened? You don't need to have a safety and this and that, and safeties are not good. Your safety is to keep your finger off the trigger and all of this. And I was like, and I know me. I can just tell you how many times accidents had happened. You can imagine that and if I'm just say I have, most women they carry their gun in their purse and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
You can imagine if a woman, has her bag open, drops
Yep,
down to pick up something, the gun falls out of the
yep.
thing,
And it
and
goes
then
off.
automatically just
Mm-hmm.
start. Yeah. Now, having help if somebody's there to get shot.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a problem. But what if it's your kid?
Yeah.
And all of that stuff. So to me, it's it's better to have the safety. And as we talked about before, um, if I have to use it, if you train with your weapon, then it's nothing wrong. It's not that hard to slip that thing up and be ready to go.
Yes.
I have that complaint every time, especially with people I know. Well, you always got to stay ready, so you have to get ready. I said, I'm already ready. I trained with it. I pull it out. I train and taking it out, drawing it, and being able to, when it's time, to be able to flip it up. But safety is very important because you just never know what you're going to do. Accident, like you said, happen. And what if you were pulling it out of, like, some people like what is it, Pendex carry?
Right.
They like to do that. What if you pull it out and it pull and snatch the trigger, and the next thing you know, you shoot yourself? I agree with you, and I always tell people it's better to have safety, because things happen, and the thing about it is nobody cares that it happened.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is you're a gun owner. It's on you. It's your responsibility to keep things safe and keep people safe around you. But you didn't do that.
Yeah. Yes.
You know.
Yes. Yes. I see people all the time go through and they thumb the hammer, for example. depending on the firearm and the sensitivity, you thumb that hammer, which is where, you're playing with it with your thumb. And so you pull the hammer back. If that hammer falls now and you don't have a safety, it's going to discharge. It depends on the firearm and the weight of the hammer and how far you pull back, all that other stuff, whether or not it actually catches. But you see people thumb the hammer and discharge the firearm. You see people go to pull it out and discharge the firearm. You're trying to pull it out of your bag, to your point. The hammer catches, it pulls back, and then it releases because whatever it was caught on comes out and firearm goes off. The slide gets racked back a little bit and then slams forward. It goes off. There, like you said, you drop it. That happens all the time. Someone drops a firearm, it goes off. Safety is not it's not that hard to literally, it's in position for your thumb to flip it.
Yeah, no, there's been, I think this only happened one time. And to know that my bag was open as well. I carry a messenger bag, and the gun had came out. It was just going to grab something, and I was like, thank God I had a safety on it, because if I didn't, it could have literally went off.
Mm-hmm.
So I pay attention very closely to what's going on. But I believe in that. I mean, I have kids,
Mm-hmm.
and safety is important. I keep my weapon. I put my weapon up, lock it, make sure they can't get to it. But safety is important to me, and that was the thing with that idiot. I had a big problem because I think he had a Glock 9, and he would keep it out in the open. I said it has no safety on it, and I was like, "You're such an idiot. If something happens, or the kids get to it, or you drop that thing, it's going off."
Yeah.
And he was just not. He doesn't deserve to have a gun.
Yeah. Yes.
And I hope that when he does get out of jail, they said they're going to expunge it. I hope that they keep him from having or dealing with guns, because he's going to hurt somebody, himself. Something's going to happen. And I'm just like, you don't know how to properly use a gun. But he also didn't go and train either.
Yeah.
He said he got his certificate from somebody, but I'm like, you don't even know how to properly hold one, how to draw, how to do anything properly, or how to, so be safe with one. You don't deserve it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And that's the truth, is if we want to continue to have our firearms, we have to police our own and ensure that our community understands the importance of safety and actually abides by it. And that's not happening in certain circles. It's just not. I shouldn't be running around with my rifle in the middle of a busy city, just pointing it all over the place, flagging everyone around me.
Yeah, no. I mean, isn't that part of
Brandishing
branding?
up.
Yep, brandishing. Yep. Like that was something else that was important. Like, you just can't pull it out,
Mm-hmm.
do whatever you want. I mean, you scare somebody, then now you have a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Somebody see that, or they feel intimidated. Now what?
Yeah.
A while ago, I don't know, maybe they have, but I swear I didn't see this. You would go into malls. I knew there were certain areas you can go in, but you go into malls, you're going to certain places. They didn't say anything about your firearm. Now you can't go anywhere where you can carry your firearm. If you have a firearm in there, and you're in trouble.
Right.
I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm like, so what's the point of having a firearm if you can't carry it in with you to protect yourself? You can't have it nowhere.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
in a grocery store, nowhere. They even have it I don't know why you bring it to the church anyway, but they have it where you can't bring it into the church, the grocery store, the pet store, nothing. You can't bring it nowhere.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And what you see as violence increases in an area, more of those signs barring firearms at businesses and elsewhere appear. And to some degree, that's counterintuitive, in that if you're like you and you're going, well, but for my safety now, I feel like this area is hot and I need to have a firearm for my protection. You can't do that. It does give them yet another charge, though, to go after someone who is robbing their place. And that's why you'll see that kind of thing come up. And that's the joke is you'll hear people say, well, it doesn't stop gun violence. True. It doesn't. No sign is going to stop gun violence. Taking away firearms isn't necessarily going to stop gun violence. In Japan, they had ridiculously strong firearm laws, but in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, they had a very vibrant, very ugly Yakuza scene where they had firearms and they used them openly because, you're going to get them from somewhere. So you do hear that, oh, well, taking away firearms doesn't stop bad guys kind of deal. And there's truth to that, but it also misses the point that most firearms used in crimes came from a legitimate purchase.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, with anything, you're gonna have pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not happy because it's contradictory to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't say you can buy one,
Yeah.
but then you can't have it on you. You can't do this. There's no point of doing it. I might as well keep it at the house. I'm never going to be able to use it if I need it because I can't. It got to be this far away from me. I can't bring it in. If somebody gets to shoot out, and I need to protect my family, I don't have it because you told me I can't bring it.
Yeah.
Like it's the same way with having a car.
Mm-hmm.
You are responsible for whatever you do with that car and how you operate that car. The same way with a gun. Do they take that away from you? Can you not bring your car to different places because your cars is just as dangerous?
Yes, that's true. And I guess another interesting point to the whole matter is if you look at New York City's violent crime has gone through the roof. And a lot of that is tied to the Supreme Court's ruling on their firearms ban. Unfortunately, though, which kind of is an obvious in your face to the a good guy with a gun, bad guy with a gun kind of deal. But the problem with that, though, is to exactly your point. If I need to defend myself against a crazy person with a knife on a subway, actually a firearm would be a terrible option, but that's what people will resort to. Firearm would be a horrible option. Just, I think I mentioned one time on here the incident in New York City where there was a gentleman shooting outside of a major building out there. Police responded. 9 people were shot. The initial news report said it was by the gunman. All 9 people got shot by the police.
Yeah, that was crazy.
See, when you're in a crowded area, firearms become a liability. It's not a problem if you're not afraid to accidentally hit other people, but it is a problem if it were in your house, for example, and you're like, well, I don't want this round to overpenetrate, go through the wall, and hit one of my kids who's sleeping, kind of deal. Or I'm on a subway and I don't want to shoot someone's kid. This guy has a knife. I mean, and yes, proper training and all that good stuff, and that's incredibly important. But people, yeah, it's a complicated issue, and that's one of my biggest issues. One of my biggest problems is all of this is incredibly complicated, but people come up with these easy answers. Well, we'll remove firearms. Well, we'll just allow whatever firearm. That's not the answer.
Well, my thing is, and there's no good way to, there's no good solution. But my thing is, if you're going to go remove firearms, that means you have to do some type of push to, and we're talking about going into people's houses, and that's just sound like something off a movie, and making people give their firearms back, which is what they sound like they were going to do it for a while. They were going to just start going around making, like, first they were going to start off asking,
Right.
and then it was going to stop being asked, and then go do. You were going to have to give up your firearm, and I mean, can you imagine a world without firearms? I mean, I guess we go back to knives, where they say in the UK, the knives are the biggest threat, and you go to people having machetes and knives and shit. And now we're going back to where we have to learn, which is a good thing, which is why I always say, and I know this kind of get off topic, this is why it's a good thing to learn how to fight,
Yes.
learn how to deal with weapons, because most people think that, oh, okay, nobody's going around carrying machetes and knives and stuff like that, and we're never gonna, like, who's going around walking with a sword? I say, but if you ever get to a point where you are in an area where they're like that, you move to Africa and stuff where they do actually use machetes, or you are in,
New York
we get
City.
back to yeah, New York City, the UK,
Mm-hmm.
or places where you can't use a gun, or we are not allowed to, then your best bet is going to be able to know how to use a weapon, especially as, like you said, if you do have a gun and you're on a subway station or in a train and you don't want to shoot anybody, you have to know how to deal with
Yep.
that person that has that knife right there and that threat in front of you.
Yep.
You can't pull out your gun.
Yep.
Because even if you do pull out your gun and you don't kill anybody else but that person, now who's the aggressor?
Right. Yeah. Well, we saw that with the gentleman who was threatening people on the subway, and a former Marine put him in a chokehold, I believe it was. The guy winds up dying, and they go after the former Marine, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, exactly to your point. Who's the aggressor now? This guy was saving people on a subway. Oh, well, he wasn't really harmful. How do you know that? As some random people riding on a subway, how do you know this person who's threatening to kill everyone and everything else is not just mentally unstable? And that's the same problem the police have, by the way. I don't know if this person actually means it, if they're mentally unstable and don't mean it, if they're mentally unstable and do mean it. I don't know any of that.
Yeah, the odds are, it's too much pressure in the moment to try to figure that out and analyze. Like, and that's why I say, I sympathize for some of them.
Yes.
Not all of them.
There are specific instances.
Yeah. Because being a cop, being in a military, anywhere you have to be, there's rounds and stuff going over your head, and be pressured to figure out how to solve this problem. I sympathize for that. But a lot of the cops and people, they don't really think.
Yeah.
They react. But they tell you, think before you do.
Right.
Before you react. They don't really think about that shit, and they just go and do. It's like they don't have a lot of good training. They don't have a lot of psychological training or awareness to see these things. They kind of just it's almost like you're just thrown into the fire, put on a suit. Hey, you know how to train. You do this. Go do your thing.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't sympathize with some of the cops nowadays, because they're just doing whatever. They're overusing their power, their will on other people, and that's not right. It's just not fair.
Yes, and in other cases, they're ruled by fear, not by logic. Philandro Castile. I always point to, everyone points to another case. I always point to that one. The man was pulled over for basic traffic stop. He gets asked to hand over his ID. He says, "Hey, just letting you know, I have a concealed carry and I'm carrying." Officer says, "Well, don't reach for it and we won't have a problem." And he says, "Okay." And he goes to get his ID. And he's shot. That's a police officer ruled by fear. The fear wouldn't have been there if he didn't have the concealed carry and if he didn't have his weapon. I guarantee, though, if he just had the concealed carry, even if he said, "Oh, I don't have a weapon," there probably still would have been a shooting. I guarantee that, because I don't believe the officer would have believed him when he said, "I don't have my weapon." I don't.
See, I'm at the point now where that's what I'm afraid of. I would have just, I would say this. I would have told the officer, if an officer stopped me and say, "Hey, I got a concealed carry license," I'd have kept my arm on the steering wheel. And if he would have asked me for myself, I would have said, "You'd have to get it, because I am not putting myself in any circumstance where I get shot, because you believe I'm going to pull something. I say, you can either get it or you can get me out the car and you can grab it yourself or pat me down. I'm not touching
I, I
it.
I think you're right, and I think the way I would play it would be, hey, I have a concealed carry license. There is either there is or there isn't a firearm on my person, in the vehicle, whatever. Will you please call your supervisor? I'm going to keep my hands here. I would like you to have your supervisor and or other police come, just so that one of you or two of you can help get me out of the vehicle in a way that's safe for everyone involved, so that everyone feels safe. And then you can take it off my person or what have you. You know, I'll make sure my hands are wherever you tell me to do. But that, because you're exactly right. And that was the thing that I've always had an issue with, is the second you have a firearm or the potential for a firearm, tensions rise. Even if you're trying to do everything right, that police officer immediately, and part of that is because they get told that their job is so dangerous, and it can be, but it's not as dangerous as they get told. But I mean, I don't want to get shot.
No, me either. That's why I said I think about that all the time, and I'm just like, hey, I'm not reaching for anything. You know, like I'm not saying that I'm not cooperating with you. I'm just not reaching for it.
Right.
I'm a black man, and I know the tensions are high. They can give two shits,
Right.
you know. But I'm just like, hey, you know, as you said, can you get your supervisor, have them come over? You guys can get me out the car. You can check me, pat me down, do whatever. But I'm not taking my wallet out of my pocket. You're gonna have to do it yourself. I'm not doing it.
Yes.
Because you've seen too many incidents where people get killed for nonsense. It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
What is the purpose of having or even letting them know and telling them in proper channels if they're not going to like give you that, like pay attention?
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to have awareness
Yeah.
of what's going on. I'm not saying nothing can go down. People do trick, but you have 3 or 4 cars now on people,
Yes.
and you're telling me that they're not paying attention on what you're doing.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You're not aware of what's going on, that you got to draw. You know what I'm saying? It makes no sense
Yeah.
at all with all of the shit that the police are doing for them to be that careless. And
Yeah.
my thing is, I don't think none of that shit should go as.
Yeah.
I think they get away a lot of the time now. They're not. It's a little bit. They're prosecuting these people. You know, the cops nowadays, but still not as much as they should. If you wrongfully draw your weapon and shoot somebody, and they were not any harm to you, you should get time. You should get stripped. You should get time. It's no way in hell you should just, oh, you know, we're going to suspend you, or you can't be a cop, but you still get to walk away with your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if that was you and you shot somebody, and then you're not even a cop, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
You're getting the maximum, but because you have a badge, that secures you from going to jail. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I see, and this all circles right back to, we get taught in training to be safe with your firearms at all times. Don't point it at anything you don't intend to shoot. Have the safety on, all of this other stuff. There needs to be that same emphasis taught to anyone who's trying to get a concealed carry, anyone who is a police officer, anyone who's anything like that. Your law enforcement, you need to be taught the same exact thing. I wish that occurred. I wish, here's the other thing. You want to decrease crime? Put more cops walking the beat. You talk about New York. If they had more police, then, or, you know, inner city Cleveland, if they had more police walking, not driving, walking, creating that relationship with the community, you would have less crime.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important. That's something that I think that that you really touched like a point there. Like having more cops in the community walking around. I mean, think about it as a criminal. I'm not saying people ain't gonna do dumb stuff, but if you have cops continuously walking around different areas and just greeting, talking, meet, like
Yes.
you're not gonna want to do anything
Yes.
because the possibility of you going to jail is the possibility of you selling drugs on the corner. You ain't gonna want to do that.
Yep.
You know, you're gonna either stop or you're gonna go somewhere else. And like I said, I mean, I guess you could have those if if they was willing to pay people and also willing to send cops out there to do these things, but they're
That's
not
the
willing to
problem.
pay them to do it. So I
Mhm.
think that's another reason why cops, you're under pressure.
Mhm.
You daily you worrying if you're gonna look, and you at the thought process that it's gonna be either them or me.
Yeah.
And you're not getting paid enough to go do any of this shit. But at the same time, they want you to do all this stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just like it can be like I'm not taking that away. It could be a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But I just feel that if you're right, if cops were walking around and more involved in their community,
Mhm.
that it wouldn't be as many crimes. And then, a
Police
lot of the stuff
violence
that's
would be
going
way
down,
down.
yeah, the police violence, people will get to know you. Like you
Mhm.
were saying,
Yes.
there's police over in Avon in your area, and they know you
Yes.
guys. They know
Yes.
who you are.
Yes.
Shit. I mean, that's a good feeling not to be able to be afraid of you, like, and to know that little Tony, or this guy, or little
Yes.
Billy. Hey,
Yes.
these are good people.
Yes.
And then if you see them doing something they're not supposed to, you're telling them, hey, you shouldn't do that because you don't want to. Like, what happened to that? There
Yes.
was at some point back in the time in the day, I'm not saying people, the cops were walking around, but they were a little bit more involved in the community. I
Yes.
remember seeing cops and they were like, hey, we don't want to see you right here again because if we do, you will be there. You know,
Mhm.
they were more engaged. Now it's just like they either more, they're not engaged. They're roaming around. They looking for shit to do. They looking to get you for something. You're
Yes.
like, it's
Yes.
no chemistry there.
Yes. And that actually started when they started reducing funding to police. Feels like it was the 1990s or maybe the 2000s. They started reducing that funding, and so now police couldn't walk the beat. And now police forces started pushing more and more to make money off of tickets and other things. And that's the worst thing. That's the absolute worst. Look, tickets shouldn't be seen as a moneymaker. Tickets should be seen as a way to enforce the law in a meaningful way, but that's not how it's being done. And you'll have all these police forces, and their big thing is they have a quota. I have to make so much money by getting so many people on these tickets. To exactly your point, thankfully that's not in my area. In my area, the police walk around, the police get to know you, they have coffee with a cop. They have a whole bunch of different events, actually. And every year, people get to go tour the police station, the fire station. You get to go into the jail, all of this other stuff. And it's this constant chance to interact with police officers. That's how you decrease crime. But the only way you can get there is through proper funding. And when you have all these people say, oh, well, defund the police, that's the wrong approach. Now, I agree we should remove the military weapons, military vehicles in general from most police forces. There's no legitimate reason why a suburb in the United States needs to have armored personnel carriers. There just isn't. It doesn't make any sense. But September 11th, that's what they did. Under Bush, through the Patriot Act and all of this other stuff, they started funneling all of this money to militarize the police departments, and that was a huge problem. That runs into the same problem the U.S. military has, where you as a service member don't get paid much, but by gum, they've got all this money for toys.
Do a lot of them even know how to use it? Because there's a lot of military people that get out of military that can't shoot. And then you got some people that are really, really good. But you get a lot of people that I'm like, boy, you can't shoot. I thought you would, you had to do all this training and you can't shoot to save your life. You hitting the wrong person. But
Well, thank you all for your time. I hope this was interesting. It was a different discussion, I guess, a vastly different discussion. I think as a firearm owner, like I said, it's incredibly important for us to police our own community. It's incredibly important for us all to recognize that in order to preserve this right, we have to ensure that we are using it appropriately, because with great power comes great responsibility. With each of these rights, it's our duty to ensure that we're storing our firearms safely, that we're using and maintaining our firearms in an appropriate manner, and that we are properly carrying our firearms. And coupled with this, of course, it's absolutely vital that everyone recognize police do an important job. They have an important function. Taking their money away from them isn't going to help. If you want to instead take away money for paramilitary weapons, paramilitary activity, things of that nature, beyond just, of course, the typical SWAT as necessary, that's fine. But defunding the police or further escalating tensions with police, as we've talked about before, only makes it more dangerous for you and I.
it makes it way more dangerous. And I think that's not the right way. I still would like police around to protect and serve as they're supposed to be. I just think, as you said, they don't need to be military people. They're not. There's a, like they're not in the military. They're not doing. The situation is not the same.
Right.
Okay, they don't need all that. You want to have fancy and nice guns? Do that on your own time. But you're here to protect and serve, and there's no reason rifle. There's no
Right.
reason you need an M16 or any of these things. What is the threat? I mean, I know there's a possibility of people having switches on their guns and Dracos and all of these different things, but a lot of these people don't even know how to use it. I mean, I swear, is there anybody walking around with an AK-47 that can hold it and use it properly?
Well, and that's what SWAT is for, though. Or if you need to, the National Guard. Hey, if we have to
Yeah,
call and wait for cops, it only makes sense that the police should have to call and wait for someone who happens to have superior firearms should the need arise.
yeah. There's just no need to me. Like, you know, you got all these cops coming. You mean to tell me you can't take down this one person? You need an M16, and then more than likely, you guys can't shoot it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the situation is different. And I just think that we don't need to defund them because we need them.
Yeah.
Without cops, this will be a purge.
Yeah. Yeah.
People just going running wild. I mean, we need cops. We need people to protect and serve and keep, everything in order. Like, there has to be rules. There has to be some structure. So, I just think that people need to come to their senses and stop being naive
Yeah.
and understand what's really going on here. And also know your fucking laws.
Yes.
Like, understand the laws. Like, I don't know everything, but I'm trying to make sure I understand the laws here and laws other places because it's very important. I don't want to go to jail.
Right.
I don't want to be there. And then, like I say, you're seeing what happened, and it's not even a gun thing. You're seeing what happened to the girl that went out there to Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't know the laws and didn't understand the culture there, and now she's in jail for a year.
Yep.
Now that shit is important. Knowing the laws and knowing where you're going and the culture and different places is important, and it can save your life, even here.
Yeah.
So I just want to end off by saying that know your laws, and we don't want to defund the police. We need the police. We just need to really think about what the real issue and problem here and how to solve.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. Yes.
But this has been our time. I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
And if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more episodes like this one. Until the next time.
Have fun.